Welcome to our 8th and final session of The Emotionally Healthy Woman. It's called Quit Living Someone Else's Life. So Jerry, why don't you tell us, to begin, how does this fit in with the rest of the previous 7 quits?
Well, if you are not doing the previous 7 quits, you are definitely living someone else's life. I mean, if you're lying, if you're dying to the wrong things, if you're denying your anger, sadness, fear, if you're over-functioning, if you're doing faulty thinking, you're not living your life. You're living someone else's life. I actually think it is easier to live someone else's life than your own. It takes great courage. I'm going to say that again. It takes great courage and intention and mindfulness to live your life and not someone else's. Just think about how easy it is to fulfill the expectations of someone else because you don't want to disappoint them. And you keep doing that over and over and over again. You're living somebody else's life. You're not living your own. David is one of my heroes because I love the story of he and Goliath. But for me, the miracle in that passage is not that David slew Goliath. The miracle for me in that story is that David could rise above the critical voices of his older siblings. It's not easy to go against your family's advice or your family's disapproval. And he also, when faced with Saul, a leader who he really respected and sought out his advice wisely, said, you know, but that just doesn't fit me. Let me tell you, that took a lot of courage when we say, well, even though everybody else does it this way, but it just doesn't fit me, I need to do it this way.
He took off Saul's armor.
He took off Saul's armor. Saul said, hey, listen, if you're going into battle, at least put my armor on. And he didn't do that. And then he didn't allow himself to be intimidated by the very intimidating Goliath. Goliath was intimidating. I mean, that was a fact. He was intimidating. But he didn't allow himself to be intimidated. And I think it was because he had a contemplative life. You know, David wrote the Psalms. He spent a lot of time out in those fields. He had a relationship with God where that was reflective, knew who he was, and he was able miraculously to differentiate himself from all those voices and be himself. And then, of course, there's Christ. Christ did not become even who his family wanted him to become. His family at moments thought he was literally out of his mind. And he certainly didn't listen to the voices of the disciples. They wanted to make him, and they wanted him to be a certain way. They had a certain image of who he was going to be, and he was like, that's not who I am, even though that's who you think I am. And he certainly didn't listen to the religious leaders of the day. And just think about the implications for you and I if Christ had not been faithful to his life. What are the implications for you and I if Christ had not been faithful to his life? In the same way, there are big implications for all the people in my life, for all the people God's going to bring me along their path, if I am not faithful to my one and only unrepeatable God-given life. If you don't live your life, nobody else is going to live it. Nobody else can live it, and your life won't get lived. Now, I really love the Hasidic tale that's told, and it goes like this. When you die and get to heaven, God's not going to say, why weren't you like Moses? He's going to say, why weren't you you? And I don't want to underestimate how difficult this is. Boy, I started out in tears, I could end in tears. It's difficult, especially, I'll say, really in all walks of life. But I know for me, in marriage, it's very complicated because you have two people's lives and you want to both be faithful to your God-given lives. So it takes maturity, it takes love, it takes prudency, it takes the fruit of the Spirit to begin to continually negotiate how there's room and space for both of you to be faithful to your God-given lives. I'm married to a leader with many visions and projects and wonderful things for my life. And I've gotten on many a treadmill of his projects, but I realized this is not who I am. And these are not things God has called me to. And I've had to say, wait a minute, this takes thoughtfulness, and no, this is not who I am, and I need to go this way. So we can enjoy doing many things together, but not everything. And because we both have to be patient and pay attention to the ways we're gifted separately and how our limits are different as well. So,
now you mentioned the phrase in this chapter and other places throughout The Emotionally Healthy Woman, the phrase "discover your integrity." How does that relate to quitting, to quit living someone else's life?
Yeah. Well, I think they're synonymous. To be faithful to your own life, to live your life and not someone else's, is to have integrity. Or when I'm not living my life, think about it. You really don't have integrity because you're not really being on the outside who you are on the inside. So, I want to be a fully congruent person. Who I am on the inside is who I am on the outside. And so if what's important to me, what I value, how I'm made, these are all parts of my integrity. And I want to be true. I want what's true on the inside to be true on the outside.
All right. Now, why is Rosa Parks, for you, such an important role model?
So hopefully you'll remember Rosa Parks from history, who in the 60s and in the era of segregation, when blacks had to sit at the back of the bus, Rosa Parks finally said one day, no more. And her integrity called her to no longer participate in that. It was something she could not do. And that for me is a great definition of integrity. Integrity is when I cannot not do something because it divides my personhood. And so for me, all the I quits leading right up to this culmination of, being faithful to your life, so you have to quit living other people's lives, is really it's an issue of integrity. In order for you to hold on to your integrity, you have to continually work at not living someone else's life, but living your own, to be a person of integrity.
Well, finally, just as we launch into the study, how has this impacted your life? Which is, in a broad stroke, what's been the difference for you?
It's interesting. My mother made a comment, but it had a big impact on me because I had no idea she was thinking this, because sometimes, I have seen the change in myself over the years, but I'm one of 7 children. And she had said just in passing one day, she goes, oh yeah, one day I was talking to your uncle and she said, of all my 7 children, nobody has changed like Jerry, or I have never seen anybody change like Jerry. And I was like thrilled because I didn't realize she had even seen the difference, or that it was even that noticeable or visible. But it has been so wonderful for me, certainly, because I'm much more a free person, and maybe even more importantly, I'm more a loving person. I don't think you can be love in the way Christ intended us to love if you haven't quit the things that we've been talking about. So it's led me to be a more loving person. It's certainly led me to be a happier person. And it's led me to having relationships with my family, with my wonderful husband, at a level that I never even dreamt was possible. So.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Now, with that, I want to send you off into your workbooks, into your small group, as you look into quit living someone else's life. And we'll come back a little bit later for the FAQs.